Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this IATEFL PronSIG webinar. My name is Victor Medina, and I'll be your host for today. Starting shortly, we have Anastazija Kirkova-Naskova, and she is speaking on research-informed pronunciation, instruction, best practice recommendations. Today, just so you know, all the certificates are provided to anyone who's watching this webinar live. So if you attend the whole webinar, you should receive an email containing your certificate after the webinar has finished. I'm sorry. If you're watching the recording, please make your own notes of your professional development activity. There will be time for questions at the end of Anastazija's talk, and at certain points, if there's any need as well. Please remember to write your questions in the Q&A box. The Q&A button appears when you move your mouse to the bottom of the Zoom window. If someone has already written the same question, you can click the thumbs up button next to that question to move it higher up the list rather than writing it again, for example. And if you need any help during the webinar, please contact me in the chat box. So to tell you a little bit more about Anastazija, we have here, she is an associate professor in English phonetics and morphology at St. Cyril and Methodius University in Skopje, North Macedonia. Her research focuses on pronunciation, teaching, and learning. She co-edited English pronunciation instruction, research-based insights from John Benjamin's 2021. Anastazija, or as she has said it herself, Annie, thank you once again for being here, and over to you. Oh, and just before we really start, I just need to make a very quick announcement, which I'll remind you everyone at the very end. Our pre-conference event at IATEFL 2022 in Belfast is taking place on the 16th of May, on Monday. This PCE will be a hybrid event, which means that you can join us in Belfast or online from anywhere in the world. This practical PronSIG PCE day will shine a light on the vitally important ways in which effective reading, listening, writing, and speaking all depend on the key language system of pronunciation. Suitable for both experienced and less experienced teachers alike, our PCE will deal with each skill both discretely and in combination over the course of 4 workshops. The expert speakers, interactive sessions, and guided peer-supported discussions will help to widen and enrich our understanding and practice of integrating pronunciation into the teaching of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So you have a QR code on your screen. Gemma, thank you. Gemma has also posted the links on the chat box, so there are plenty of ways for you to read more into this if you're ever interested. I hope you are, and I hope you enjoy it as much as you're going to certainly enjoy Annie's webinar today. Annie, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, so you can feel free to take over. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Victor. Can you see the slide?
Usually, yes.
See the presentation well? All right. Hello, everyone. It's such an honor to be presenting here at this webinar, and I'd like to begin by thanking the PronSIG team for the extraordinary work they put into organizing such inspirational webinars, and also for organizing the annual PronSIG conference. I don't know what to say. You guys are professional and team goals. That's all I'm going to say. Let me start my presentation by, discussing just a little bit, just showing you the outline of the presentation. I've structured it into 3 larger blocks. First, introducing you the context, what happens between research and practice, what's the link, what's the connection, is there a connection at this moment of time? I will then talk about the themes that preoccupy us researchers and hopefully are interested to you as teachers. And finally, I'll discuss some implications, teaching implications really, and recommend the 3 types of activities that I think have great potential in the classroom. So let's start with number one, what the context is at the moment between what's the link. Is there a love story between research and pedagogy at the moment? And the answer is yes, there is. All right. For a very long time, pronunciation has been marginalized. And as a result of that, teachers have been left to really rely on their intuition, how to teach pronunciation, and also their experience. And the only experience they got really was as, how they learned to pronounce things as L2 learners, which you have to agree is simply not enough. So what happens at right now is that research into different aspects of L2 pronunciation, teaching and learning is really gaining momentum and making promising advances. But sadly, the results are not often translated into observable improvements in teaching materials and approaches. In other words, pedagogy is failing to keep up with the pace at which research is progressing. In the words of Levis, Professor Levis says this is, well, it's a paradoxical result of this relative wealth of research is that connection between L2 pronunciation research and L2 pronunciation teaching have become less obvious. So on the one hand, you have this great research, and on the other hand, teachers do not understand it. So many studies do not have clear implications for teaching, and many practically oriented publications show minor grounding in research. So these oriented publications are actually used by teachers. So this is a very interesting situation and a cautioning tale, really. We have to do something about it. I'd like to say that the link between research and pedagogy is like, metaphorically speaking, is like a relationship a teenager has with his parents, or let's take one parent. Will they find a common ground? Once there's maturity, really. But what happens really, these are they're two worlds apart at the moment, trying to connect. And well, the teenager, the teenager has the know-how and curiosity, which are typical traits of researchers. And the parent has the experience, wisdom, and pragmatic viewpoint, which is a typical trait of a teacher. So yeah, you got the metaphor there. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. We are getting somewhere. Now, could you do me a favor and take a moment to just read these questions? And these are actually thought-provoking questions, as I like to call them. This is a list of questions that, well, the real question is, can you answer them easily? And I think not, because you see, these probably not, because not being able to answer these questions is actually a huge cause of anxiety and existential crisis for teachers. And what are the questions? So, is pronunciation instruction effective? That is the big question. The assumption is that instruction in general is effective, but pronunciation is a bit different. The pronunciation as a skill is a bit different, so therefore pronunciation is instruction is different. Then the next question every teacher should ask himself is, do you teach pronunciation on a regular basis? And if yes, do you feel competent to teach pronunciation? Research has informed us that teachers, the majority of teachers that have been asked this question, say that they feel insufficiently trained to teach pronunciation. And you must agree with me, that is a huge problem. Another question that frequently appears is, should the focus of pronunciation instruction be on auditory mode, or that is perception, or articulatory mode, that is production? Who knows the answer? It's the chicken and egg tale. Another question is, which is more important? Should we teach segmental features or suprasegmental features? Again, another difficult question to answer. Do you use a variety of pronunciation teaching techniques in the classroom? What's that? Many teachers don't even know how to define a teaching technique related to pronunciation. What types of pronunciation tasks are most effective, controlled or spontaneous? This is another controversial issue, especially in the framework of communicative language learning. Do you address pronunciation errors every time your students make them? Many of you might think about, how we were instructed not to interrupt the student when they're speaking. But when it comes to pronunciation, maybe sometimes this is important. We'll see. Is pronunciation learned more effectively if taught separately? So just pronunciation skills, or if taught combined with other language skills, pronunciation and listening, pronunciation and speaking, and so on. And finally, the taboo topic is pronunciation integrated in the textbooks and national curricula. Now, this is actually the teaching reality. I'm sure that most of you got stressed out just by reading these questions, but I believe it's important to ask them so that we understand what our position as teachers, is. Now, let me present the reality. Why are these questions difficult to answer? They're difficult to answer because when teachers are in the classroom, there are many factors that play their role in the decision-making process. Teachers simply have to decide on what to teach, where to teach, how to teach, etc. And in terms of pronunciation teaching, these are all the things that they have to think about at all times. What phonological structure should I focus on? Segment, syllable, word stress, sentence stress, connected speech, rhythm, intonation, so many. At what level? Should I practice it on word level, sentence level, or discourse level? The type of instruction is closely related to the activity or the degree of control of the activity. So if teachers focus on forms, that is typically controlled activity, or just form where form is corrected, focused on in both controlled and communicative contexts, or just focus on meaning within, again, the framework of communicative language teaching and learning. We must never forget that learners also improve cognitive skills by, learning, and especially by learning pronunciation. Here are the cognitive skills. So do we want to practice and improve any of these skills? That's another question that a teacher should decide what to do. So with practicing pronunciation, noticing is improved, discriminating is practice, imitating is practice. So these are all the cognitive skills that are being, predicting. These are all taken into consideration. And finally, learners. Learners come to your classroom with a completely different mindset than yours. Sometimes there are overlaps, but most of the time they have a completely different mindset, and they have their issues, right? And their issues is that they come from, they may have the same language L1 background, but also in monolingual classes, in classes with multilingual classes, students come from different language backgrounds with different exposure and linguistic experience, with different level of proficiency. They have different pronunciation goals and needs, and they might identify with the language they learn, or they may not. So they develop different L2 identities, and the poor teacher has to take this into consideration. So this makes the act of teaching very complex. So it is understandable why it is difficult to integrate novel approaches or insights stemming from research. It's simply difficult. Not that teachers don't want to do it. It's just sometimes it's really overwhelming. So in addition to that, most of the majority of teachers only receive formal training in aspects of phonetics and phonology during their undergraduate studies, and they rarely are exposed, or they're taught a pedagogical component addressing how to teach pronunciation. So this reality seems to be ever changing. It's fluid, really. And at one point, it became unbearable. The problems that were there present could no longer be ignored. And it was a point in the moment, 20 or so years ago, where the concepts was, we had to reevaluate and reconceptualize what we know. And entered the stage Monroe and Derving with their seminal paper on foreign accent, comprehensibility and intelligibility in the speech of second language learners. What they did is that they argued that foreign accent, it's a concept that we're all familiar with, is actually a construct that in fact includes or consists of several perceptual phenomena, and that is accentedness, defined as a different pattern of speech sounds compared to a local variety. Second phenomenon, comprehensibility, which is the listener perception of how easy or difficult it is to understand a given speech sample, or just simply a judgment of difficulty, not a measure really. And the last one is intelligibility, which is the degree of listeners' actual understanding of an utterance. And now broken down like this, everything makes sense. It's why we treat foreign accent differently. Different people treat it differently. To some, it's more acceptable. To others, it is absolutely unacceptable. Fast forward to 2005, John Levis published his article, Changing Contexts and Shifting Paradigms in Pronunciation Teaching, where he contrasted the nativeness and intelligibility principle, arguing that it is possible and desirable. So contrary to the common misconception that it's impossible to, for example, attain native language pronunciation after a certain age. But the argument here is that it is possible and desirable to achieve native like pronunciation depending on the learning context and the pronunciation goals of the learner. But the reality is that learners simply need to be understandable, and it seems that in this kind of duel, the intelligibility principle really wins, because with the growing global impact of English as an international language, communication is a priority, and it turns out that communication can be successful despite a noticeable or even a strong foreign accent. So inspired by such viewpoints, researchers have started, researching all things related to L2 pronunciation, teaching and learning. And since there are 25 years since then, or 30, whatever, some current issues, some topics started reoccurring in research, and three broad themes have developed areas, really: exploring what to teach in English pronunciation, exploring how to teach pronunciation effectively, and what teachers' cognitions, beliefs, and knowledge are, as well as learners' perspectives on pronunciation instruction. Now, for the purposes of this pronunciation, I will only focus on theme B, the second one, because this webinar is supposed to help you in a more practical way, and that is to explore how to teach pronunciation effectively. And I beg you not to hate me because the next 4 slides are packed with text, but I figured you're all here because you want to learn a little bit more, and if you get the recording, you can get back to whatever I touched upon. So let's see what happens in this area. What happens really in this area is that there are lots of studies. First of all, there is a subgroup that wanted to establish what priorities in pronunciation teaching are. So there were numerous studies that investigated accented speech, the perceptual phenomena, accent comprehensibility and intelligibility, interactions between different types of speakers, the intelligibility as a principle, is it viable, the effectiveness of pronunciation instruction, and also L2 identity and raising awareness. So these are the topics of interest in research. And here I will briefly discuss some more important findings, which I think you can all choose to either implement or not implement in your teaching practice. So studies into accented speech, for example, Monroe argues that L2 speech can be and is actually different from native speech, but yet it can be intelligible and comprehensible. So that's a given. And therefore, the traditional approach to teaching pronunciation with the priority of accent reduction, so we should teach pronunciation so that accent is eliminated, is actually a thing of the past. And this is supported by research. So accent reduction should not be the goal of pronunciation teaching and learning. What a relief, right? Next, the type of studies that researchers looked at is accent comprehensibility, intelligibility, and what are the measures, what are the aspects that listeners attune to. For example, they're so different, and we know that now from research. What we know is that accent, the concept of accent is always related to aspects of phonology, especially rhythm and segmental accuracy and syllable structure accuracy, whereas comprehensibility, the other face of accent is related to grammatical accuracy and lexical richness. And you must admit that such insight is extremely valuable, because you can, knowing this, you can actually, make a decision on the go in the classroom, depending on a learner, what he or she or the problem is really. When it comes to learner interactions, it's very obvious that more and more L2 learners, especially English learners, will interact in the future between other, they will interact with other L2 learners rather than native speakers. We say that English has become a lingua franca, and yeah, that's positive, but again, we have a reality here where learners of different backgrounds will make different errors, and certain phonological errors are potential causes of miscommunication. So if the goal of language learning is communication, then we must take into consideration the phonological errors that most likely cause miscommunication. And these errors are actually defined by the lingua franca core. And I would go into details because Victor's webinar touched upon that, and it was really good to have a look at it again. I would just give you a word of caution here, because in the world of research and practice, LFC, the lingua franca core, is a shining example of research-informed practice that actually was widely accepted by the teaching community in a very, very short time. But it was actually misinterpreted. It was interpreted as a set of features that should be the only focus of pronunciation instruction. So it was accepted, so teachers accepted it because they thought it was a tool, and we should focus on these features only, and that's all we need to focus on pronunciation. So that was a misconception, another misconception, because language learners of different backgrounds have additional pronunciation problems that can also cause miscommunication. So a little bit of this was kind of an overall approach, but a little bit of a more individual approach is also always needed. More and more studies prove that intelligibility should be the goal of pronunciation teaching and learning. And again, a word of caution here, because when we talk about it being so experienced in teaching and, our professional development, I'm sure that all of you are interested in their professional development, like we're forever learners, right? But this doesn't translate that easily as a construct. In other words, learners do not easily grasp the complexity of the intelligibility concept. For example, I'm sorry, I'll give you an example from my own experience, which happened quite recently. I have adopted this research-informed practice and made intelligibility a goal during my first semester of the course English, Phonetics and Phonology. The reason why I've chosen this goal for a priority for my students is because it's the first time where they can improve their pronunciation, they can actually try. And also there is another semester, there is a second semester when they can improve to a near native level. And so the priority in the second semester is slightly higher, the bar is higher, only because these students are actually going to be future teachers. So their responsibility is greater. However, so I'm quite tolerant for the pronunciation of my students in the first semester. And just this exam session, they were very, I don't know, uneasy about the oral exam. So I had one student who was really good, who passed the exam with success. And what she did, on the first class of the second semester, I asked her to share, we reflected on the exam. And so I asked her to share her experience, because her experience was a positive experience with the exam. And what she said, she said that it's really easy and you don't have to improve your pronunciation. That was a really low point in my career, but it was also a silver lining, because I just realized that, that she, her pronunciation was average, but there was room for improvement, and she did not understand the concept of intelligibility. She simply interpreted it as, a free pass to whatever inconsistent pronunciation. So a little bit of caution there. The largest body of research is actually about whether pronunciation instruction is effective or not. And yes, it is. We have research-informed findings, really. And not only that it is effective, but researchers argue that it should be integrated in the textbook so that we make sure that it is being taught. And even more, Darcy argues that it should be mandatory and, substantial in teacher training programs as well. It's not that they're not part of the teacher training programs, it's just that they're proportionally less, discussed approach taught in a teacher training programs. And given the importance of communication, I think they should be given, a larger space within the teacher training programs. And finally, the last one is raising awareness regarding L2 identity, both teacher and learner. It's important here that we understand that, the nativeness principle will not go away because native accents are still necessary as reference points. We have to have reference points, especially in EFL contexts. So, but the good news is the positive, the optimism here is that there is a wider acceptance and awareness of non-native accent diversity. So non-native accents are being more and more accepted by both native and non-native learners of English. Great, right? That's wonderful. Good news. Okay, perhaps what you might be really interested in is what's the impact of instruction on learner intelligibility and phonological improvement. Is there any? So let's look at studies that investigated type of instruction. So we learn from these studies, the arrows there are more important findings really. We learn that focus on forming controlled and communicative contexts enables learners to improve both during controlled and spontaneous practice. They simply generalize their knowledge outside of the classroom, while if you focus on forms, this yields improvement as well. But because it is in controlled contexts, it doesn't transfer outside of the classroom. So it improves, phonetic accuracy, but not, there is no transfer. Pronunciation teaching at a controlled level allows teachers to explain explicit phonetic information. This enables learners to notice and practice the accurate production of segments, syllables, prosodic and temporal features. Then the instruction develops perceptual and noticing skills. So you have to practice both perception and production. The intelligibility-based teaching approach is much more favored. So focus on mispronunciations that affect intelligibility. Do not bother those that do not affect intelligibility. Task-based pronunciation teaching directs attention to form, so and meaning depending on the task. And also there is a discourse-based teaching. Intonation is easier to understand, is taught through discourse context as opposed to isolated or partial utterances. The type of phonological structure is also important to address, both in both segmental and suprasegmental, not either or, but both. So a broad framework is suggested. You have to pay attention to both of them. But if the priority is overall oral communication, general improvement in oral communication, then you should focus on suprasegmentals. And important is the teachers should select phonological features based on their learners' goals, backgrounds, and proficiency level. Several techniques were investigated. High variability perceptual phonetic pronunciation training of both non-words and real words. I'll talk about this a little bit later. Use of phonemic symbols and keywords, whether you use a symbol to refer to a sound or a keyword to refer to a sound, both are good because they develop and consolidate phonological categories in learners' minds. Critical listening raises their awareness of what acceptable L2 speech is. Oral corrective feedback is really important. You have to correct their errors, otherwise they will not develop awareness of where what their mistakes are. And use of technology, I will not talk about this because this is such a huge area, but it, generally speaking, it promotes authentic language use and it improves learners' comprehensibility and fluency. So two aspects of foreign accent concept. The functional load principle is also advocated because there are certain segments that have high communicative value and load, and you should pay attention to those because they determine between low and mid-level proficiency learners, whereas those with low communicative value help determine between mid and high level. And also connected speech should be, is actually rapid and informal spontaneous speech should be decoded first to learners so that they can practice it better. And finally, the third topic here is pronunciation strategies. These are important, protocols, procedures you should teach your students. And there are various strategies, but most interesting is that high and low achieving learners use different strategies. We didn't know that, but now we know, thanks to Shishka's research, and also thanks to Saldana's research, we know that learners who are trained to use such strategy protocols, they're much more successful than those who don't. They practice more frequently, they're motivated to continue, and they demonstrate high sense of self-efficacy. And this is very important for their confidence. So strategy-based instruction is also favored among researchers. And now let's do something much more practical. What are the implications? Let me discuss a little bit, well, actually show you how these techniques can be translated into classroom practice. For example, my favorite is high variability pronunciation training, because with these technique we practice perception and also discrimination and identification on pronunciation features. If you want to practice both perception and production, shadowing is the perfect technique, and you can choose any of the phonological structures for this. And also always practice awareness. You have to start the conversation. That's the idea here. And accents and diversity of accents, since, you know, developing sensitivity to one varieties and to non-native speech is really, really important in this sense. So let's start with high variability perceptual training. What's that? It's a training which focuses on, well, actually, why don't I show you a video I made and present it as a teaching tip at PSLLT. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this teaching tip on reinventing AXB tasks in the classroom. I'm Anastazija, and in this video I'll be exploring ways of using one task format in several activities that practice different aspects of pronunciation. The activities focus on enhancing learners' L2 perception by fine-tuning their noticing skills and developing their L2 phonological awareness. You might ask, why focus on perception and not on production? Well, research findings inform us that L2 pronunciation difficulties are actually rooted in learners' inability to perceive similar phonetic features. Research also points out that the type of language input learners receive matters. If exposed to good examples of authentic speech, learners can discriminate better. When researchers use stimuli with multiple talkers in varied phonetic contexts to train learners, the results were promising. Such high variability perceptual training can be adapted and used as powerful pronunciation technique in the classroom. So, we can combine these insights by modifying tasks used for research purposes, such as the AXB discrimination task. The format of the task is simple. Learners are presented with 3 sound stimuli and instructed to decide which 2 are the same and which one is different, or if all 3 are the same or different. This is the basic format of the activity, and it focuses on learners' noticing skills. All you need is online dictionaries, a list of minimal pairs, and a handout for the student. The preparation time is minimal. Open 3 online dictionaries in different tabs. Type each word of the sequence in a different dictionary. Play the sound files in a sequence. Check, check, check. Students listen and make a choice. They write the sequence they hear in the handout. The next activity requires some preparation. First, compile a list of suitable sentences which differ in one word, a minimal pair contrast. Then record native speakers saying those sentences. You also need a student handout. Play the audio files one at a time.
I can't leave without it.
I can't leave without it.
I can't leave without it.
Students listen and make a choice whether sentence X is the same as sentence A or sentence B. They write the sentence that repeats in the handout. Then they choose which option of the given answers is the logical response to the sentence. This way, the sentence is put in context. This activity focuses on word stress. Research shows that word stress misplacement is detrimental for intelligibility. So it's always useful to explain different stress patterns, especially when certain words are frequently mispronounced. Open 3 online dictionaries in different tabs. Type each word of the sequence in a different dictionary. Play the sound files in the sequence.
Commander, committee, comatose.
Students listen and make a choice. They write the sequence they hear in the handout. As a follow-up, ask your students to suggest more frequently mispronounced words. In my example, the word committee is often mispronounced as committee. Mastering strong and weak forms of English function words helps learners perceive thought groups better and improves their overall fluency. Start by telling students that they will hear different speakers discussing different topics. They should focus on the pronunciation of the chosen function word. Go to youglish.com and choose the option All Varieties. Type the function word you want to practice. Play the first 3 videos.
What you know, because I figure you must know a lot about money if you can afford a full-page ad and yell warming. But we must also realize that we have weak capacity.
So as we drive dirt out of one area, we must be alert to the risk they will seek a safe haven elsewhere.
While listening, students circle the variant they hear and discuss which 2 recordings have the same pronunciation. This activity is cognitively challenging, but most helpful. After a while, students learn to ignore the distractions and focus only on pronunciation. Learners can easily recognize British and American English, but they struggle to understand speakers of other English varieties. This activity raises their awareness. Online speech corpora are great resources. I'll demonstrate the procedure using the Speech Accent Archive. Open the archive in 3 tabs. Choose a different speaker in each. I've chosen an American speaker, another American speaker, and a Northern Irish speaker.
Please call Stella. Ask her to bring these things with her from the store.
Call Stella. Ask her to bring these things with her from the store.
Please call Stella. Ask her to bring these things with her from the store.
Students listen and guess the varieties. Learners are not used to hearing their own native speech and could benefit from listening to both native and non-native speech. This activity helps them understand the importance of non-native speech intelligibility. You need to prepare in advance and record your students. Play the authentic recording followed by the recordings of 2 learners. Have students evaluate which recording is more acceptable relative to the authentic recording.
What about this fish? Can I eat it? Yes, eat it.
What about this fish?
Yes,
What about this fish? Can I eat it? Yes, eat it.
this activity is a great opportunity to discuss learners' speech and to critically listen to their mispronunciations.
Well, it was really fun to do. All the activities were interesting and easy. Of course, some of them were harder. For example, activity number 3.
To me, the hardest one was activity 4 for some reason. Maybe the rapid speech confuses me a little.
I liked the fact that it made some people aware about the differences in pronunciation.
I found them difficult because there were different pronunciations and different speakers.
I didn't pay attention before to how people pronounce things, and this was very useful.
I liked each activity in particular, but my favorites were 5th and 6th one.
That's all from me. Thank you for your attention and enjoy practicing pronunciation with your students.
All right, so I hope you found useful activities there. But another one that I'd like to also mention is that you go ahead and try English Accent Coach. It's a wonderful platform where your students can practice HVPT. And I've also listed the online dictionaries that I frequently use. Because in a dictionary you don't know where the talkers, the ones who say the words, you don't know their background, so the variability is definitely there and they're free, so that's wonderful, right? Another activity, sorry, let's move on to the next one. Shadowing is another activity which is also mirroring or tracking. It's basically imitating a presented speech stimulus. as closely and as quickly as possible. And here we make use of technology. So if your students can just download this app, or they can hear the speech here, and then they can record themselves and they can evaluate almost in real time, which is absolutely fantastic. And the final activity, I would like to give credit to this activity to my dear colleagues Kristina Červinkova-Poisova and Klara Lančova from the Charles University in Prague, who presented this activity at Accents 2021 in their presentation Developing Unbiased Teacher Identity in Pluri-Accent Reality, research-based classroom activity. So this is a research-grounded developed, so the materials were developed during they conducted their research, and the activity is called Four Corners. So because they were investigating accent and teachers' attitudes towards accent, what they did really, they took their views from the questionnaire and they created an activity which looks like this. So 4 different views were presented to the students, and they had to go to the particular corner, you know, the actual view they felt closest to. And of course, most of them, you know, went here, here, and here, and not here. Which you can do really is have a follow-up activity because you know, like that. You imagine this was a drastic right viewpoint, and also you can use even a negative viewpoint. You can use to discuss and articulate reaction, sensitivity. You can explain necessity, and this type of activity can be used for whatever topic, not just accents, but any topic that might arise, any pronunciation goal, need, anything related to pronunciation, and also outside, you know, outside of the classroom, their problems, etc. So the potential is huge. All right, so to wrap up things, remember, what can I say? What should a teacher do after, you know, knowing all these things? Please don't get overwhelmed. That's the one thing that you should do. What you should start with, you should inform yourself about the L2 sound system. I mean, most of you are, right? But you put your intuitive and streetwise knowledge into a systematic framework somehow, so that you can you enable yourself to diagnose your learners' weaknesses and talk about their needs, goals, and expectations. Because knowing what, so the first step is always to determine your where students' pronunciation problems are, which is, of course, you must admit, the most difficult thing to do. Now, perform diagnostics. 3 points, remember, perform diagnostics for overall comprehensibility, for segmental problems, and for suprasegmental problems. The 3 is the lucky charm. Okay, so this is a laborious process at the beginning and depends on group size, but depends on student demographics, but it is worthwhile in the long run, because guess what? Errors repeat and you gain experience, and then things are much easier. And after you do that, you can plan your lessons and activities, and also always give homework assignments. In the classroom, adopt embrace the hit and miss approach. You don't have to be perfect. I mean, just observe your classroom context and start with just choose any one of the one I've offered. Like, okay, so choose this finding, implement it, use it with an activity, but make sure it's research grounded. This is important because, as I mentioned, not all activities are grounded in research, which means that they, the chances that they will yield improvement are not high. All right, but with research grounded activities, the chances are high. So you are actually saving a valuable classroom time. So I think this is extremely important. And finally, always, find time to raise awareness at the beginning, in the middle, at the end of the class. first of all, always repeat and explain that comfortable intelligibility, that intelligible pronunciation is actually important for, it's very relevant and important for communication. And also it's important that they learn on their own. They must learn how to practice but on their own. And it is our job to equip them with such skills. So teach them strategies how to do that. And I think, think about where you're right now. I would say that by the very fact that you're here on this webinar, like, some of you may be a regular webinar, goers, I would say that you're on the right track. Well, good for you. Maybe you're in stage 1, maybe 2, who knows. All right, so to conclude, I would like to point out that together with my colleagues, Alice Henderson and Jonas Gonzalez, the inspirational two in my life, we have had lots of brainstorming sessions, and the conclusion we arrived at is that how to overcome the gap. We need to connect research and pedagogy by promoting discussion of the pedagogical implications and applications that research findings have for pronunciation instruction. We need to reframe the mindset of the researcher. We need to reframe how researchers see pedagogy. And how do we do that? We need to have studies with results that can be, even the researchers can see their applicability, so that hands-on materials can be created. And also teachers need to inform researchers on pressing pedagogical issues. So what's your problem? Tell us, so that we can investigate that and help with best practices. What does future bring? I think we need more classroom-based studies. There are few. The variables are huge. Teachers, learners, features, teaching techniques, different ages, different maturity, different goals. I mean, the variables are constantly changing. So we need to have set kind of paradigms where we can investigate what really works in the classroom. And also we need to investigate different teaching contexts. And when I say different teaching contexts, what I mean here is that we can investigate one particular teaching context, but we also need to check whether the findings we get from that particular context are also applicable to slightly different teaching contexts. So that's a major issue and a very important one. Now, what follows really is a gallery of photos. If you want to get to be more informed, I find these books, The Essentials, The Bibles in My Life, and especially the Journal of Second Language Pronunciation, the handbooks of English pronunciation, and the 2 Routledge handbooks. This is relatively new. I think it was it was out a month ago. So, a lot of things that you can learn from. Other resource books are that are focused on practical applicability of research findings are these books. And also there are 3 more books that are forthcoming this year, and they're very exciting because they are all just like with our book, the other one, English Pronunciation Instruction, Research-Based Insights. These books have made it their priority to, translate research findings into practical teaching activities and approaches. If you are interested and curious to browse the internet, here are some links for you. And all the references that oh gosh, so many. Thank you so much for your interest and for attending this webinar. I humbly thank you. All right.
Very much for that, Anastazija. Annie.
Thank you.
We have time for some questions. So I was just when you were doing the rehearsal, you talked about the links and how you could probably make them available. Would it be okay for you to share the slides or a list with the links? What would make you more comfortable doing?
I'm sorry, what links? I didn't get that.
Yeah. those ones for people to be able to access later.
Yeah, well, sure, I can share my presentation with anyone who is interested.
Okay.
So, of course, I can send it to you. You can email me. No problem.
Yeah,
No
just
problem.
the way you prefer to present, because then when we add the recording, we have a link that we'll share to everyone here, and then we will be able to make it available for everyone. Because obviously they need to see the recording to make the best of this, but it's good to have at least access to the links.
No problem. And the video will be uploaded on this site, Pronunciation for Teachers. Hopefully there will be much more teaching tips there uploaded, because the conference was great last year, the PSLLT conference. There were so many interesting and very useful teaching tips. So if you have the time, have a look at them once they upload them.
Absolutely. And because people are asking here, and everyone, as soon as we have the material shared by Professor Annie, we will add it to the same page where you found the information for this webinar. Or if you just check our YouTube channel, you'll also be able to see it. All right.
No problem.
So we've got a question here from Sengar Ibrahim, asking you about the best way to teach pronunciation to non-native English students at an English department, because they have not enough background information about the English language and how English words and sounds are pronounced correctly before being admitted to university.
I kind of lost the sound. I'm sorry. It's probably something about the internet. Best way to teach pronunciation to non-native English students at an English department. Wow. Do you have the time? The 3 blocks that I've shown you, that's exactly what I practice in my teaching. The semester is 3 months, and I spend 1 month on perception, 1 month on production practice, and also in between raising awareness. So it's really less theory, and so the ratio is 1 to 2. So less theory and more practice, and also lots of discussion. You have to teach them about the sound system, you know, the boring stuff, but if you teach them in a fun way, show them lots of videos. I will add more links in the presentation about that stuff, about videos, about articulatory settings, etc. So yes, they like videos. The BBC channel has really interesting videos about how sounds are created, and what I like about those videos is that they give a front face and side face view, so you can actually see the organs of speech. And yes, teach the organs of speech. And also I teach my students proprioceptive skills, imagining what happens inside the mouth. It's funny at the beginning, but it proves really helpful at the end. Once it becomes automated, it's really great for them. It's like empowering them with a skill that they've never been aware of, and it's cool in the end. All right. I hope I've answered your question.
It sort of answers Danica Tisma's question. Yes, you mentioned proprioception. Thank you, Danica. And I think we have time for one more question only, very unfortunately. But I'm going to have to choose here the first one by Vera Godecheva. Where could we find more info on how to test students' pronunciation? Maybe from that book gallery? Is there anything from those references you think would be advisable?
Testing. Graham Cooper has a great diagnostic. Most of the textbooks have diagnostic tests at the end. Let me have a look at my library, and I will find something interesting, and I will add it to a separate slide, and then I'll send it to you. So you will have the information within the presentation together with the recording.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Just get back to presenting your data here. There we go. Hopefully you can see the slides clear. Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, I think we're coming to an end. to this wonderful, thank you very much for this, for your time with us today, Annie. This has been really, hopefully, just like you said, hopefully people feel at least somehow at ease to start trying out things, you know, taking the time to experiment with trying one of those techniques or something like this. Right? It's really enriching for most of us here, I'm very sure.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add that I feel you. I feel the frustration of having to read so much. I feel the frustration of not having time to focus on pronunciation. But you know, it's like you have to eat. Please practice pronunciation because it's really beneficial. If you think of your students, it's really beneficial for them in the long run. They really feel much more empowered and confident. Even a slight change, a slight improvement in their pronunciation makes them better language learners. It's something happens in the brain when sounds get better, and I promise you, you won't make a mistake if you give it a go.
Absolutely, all about the experience. Couldn't agree more. Everyone, so I think that's all we have time for. And again, Annie, thank you so much for your incredible talk, really. And if anyone wants to continue the conversation on this topic, you can comment or reply to a post dedicated to this talk on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube on the upcoming days. And please follow the links I'm posting in the chat now to your preferred platform. And share your thoughts and connect with others. Remember to use the hashtag PronSIG so others can follow your comments. And just before you go, I would really like to remind you of our lovely PCE event. You can see it now on the screen. Here are the topics. I hope you can see clearly. I'm sorry. We're going to have Robin Walker, Christine Go, Mark Hancock, and Adam Scott presenting on each of the skills as a focus for our PC event. And as I said at the beginning, it's going to be a hybrid one, so you can follow from anywhere in the world. Or if you have the opportunity to be in Belfast, please don't miss out on this. And let's see here, what else? And finally, before you go, as I always invite you, if you're not a member of PronSIG, why not? And as you can see from our slide, with annual membership to IATEFL, you can choose to become a member of our SIG. And as a member, you get access to great benefits, including access to our members-only journal Speak Out, which is published twice a year, reduced price entry to our conferences, free entry to events such as this, and the ability to apply for PronSIG scholarships. But better than this, you'll be joining an amazing community of teachers who are passionate about the subject and rubbing shoulders with experts such as Annie, from whom we can definitely learn every time. Alternatively, if you have something to contribute, just like Annie did today, please get in touch. We're looking for webinar content for 2022 and beyond. So please email us at pronsig@iatefl.org to discuss your ideas with us further. And to stay connected with us, as I shared previously on the chat box, be the first to find out about upcoming events, for instance. You can follow us on any of these social media bases. You can also catch up on previous recorded webinars on our YouTube channel. We're amassing a beautiful library thanks to your contributions. And of course, become a member and also get monthly emails delivering all the latest information straight to your inbox. And we have lots of exciting plans for 2022, and we hope you'll be there to join us. So now officially, thank you again for joining us today, Annie, and everyone here in the chat, and we hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much. Cheers to everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.